I've been running some experiments and I've been testing a couple of things. And I've had some interesting findings. Now, if you have tested DaVinci Resolve 20, there's a lot of things that you could be doing. And one of the first things that I tried to sort of decode was the subtitles animations, or I'm on Studio. If you have Studio, you probably tried these. We have these animations right here for the subtitles that are sort of pre-made animations. I was trying to see, okay, how could I make these a little bit more my own, try to customize it. And I think they might have actually hard-coded these. I don't know if that's a word, hard-coded, but they made these sort of like running a script or something like that, because we have these right here, which is one of those animations. These is just a test. And I was able to modify one of those. How did I even go into it? Let's see. It's not these. I don't even know where I went earlier. I think I have been in the inspector. Everything's going to change right now. So just bear with me right here. So once we add these subtitle animation or pre-made subtitle animation, we have these window right here, which is that grabs all the text, and then you have all the different settings that you can change right here. Now, when I try to go into it to see, okay, how can I make these so I can build my own cool presets and stuff like that, I found these, which is just these macro tool. And then we have these tags. So these macro tool has its own controls right here, which are these controls, and that's it. So that's why I'm thinking that there was something done inside the code. And I tried to go into VS Code, I think, if I remember correctly. And I don't think I actually saw any of, like, I was not able to go deeper into how they made these. So I'm not sure about how easy it would be to create presets for the subtitles in this case. But yeah, so that's my sort of like the conclusion that I came into when checking out these subtitles pack. Not pack, what do you call it? Pre-animated presets. Presets, that was a word. It looks cool, but it might be a little bit limited. But it's a beta. Maybe when the actual version 20 comes out, it will be fixed, or it will be a little bit more dynamic or flexible and allow for more customization. Okay, now the other thing that I was experimenting with was the MultiText tool, which at first sight, or at first when you just look at it, then you think, okay, that's pretty cool. Yeah, you have multiple text, and so what is the actual use case scenario for these? If I press play, I made this animation and it looks pretty cool, right? I think it's clean, it looks fine. And we have all the keyframes that I just created. You just create the keyframes straight from here. You can do that, just the shading and stuff. But if you want to make the animation smooth, you still have to go into Fusion. So what if there is somebody that's not completely familiar with Fusion yet, and they open these and they're just like, oh shit, no, and they just get scared and then leave because it looks a little bit completely different and it looks maybe scary for somebody that hasn't tried these. Now, if you're already used to it, then you just do these with your eyes closed. You open the spline tool, and bam, beam, bam, boom, you're good to go. But we have these right here, and then we can adjust the spline tools. Now, one thing that I was taking a look here was that here, all these values get sort of mixed up when you create the animation. And it's sort of by order of when you create the keyframe, then they just stacked up like these. Now, ideally, maybe this could be a thing that they actually work on for when the actual version is released. Ideally, if let's say I just created the keyframes for the stop, then we will have these right here, or the layout center one. That's what stop's supposed to be. That's why I renamed these to text one. Ideally, all the settings that you have changed in here will just show up under this drop down. That way you don't have to be finding these, because otherwise you have to go and try, let's say, rename these. And then we have to put text 1 right here again. And it's not even going to show up, right? So it just becomes a little bit more clutter. The idea is good, but there's a few missing pieces, I guess. It looks cool. If you already know how to use Fusion and do stuff, then it's really good that you don't have to add a lot more text. But at the end of the day, if you have to deal with these sort of like thing that you have to like find things, then it becomes a little bit of like, yeah, you solve something, but then there's other problems that arise, which is part of building stuff. I mean, I've been building a bunch of stuff with AI right now, not video related, just a bunch of like SaaS or software or apps. I'm not even a developer, but I've just been sort of learning and trying to build, okay, can you do this? Can you do that? Just experimenting a little bit. And that's part of the process. When you try to add something new, then something else arises that you didn't think of before. But I think the MultiText tool is pretty cool that for the people that already know how to use everything and that are pretty fast and efficient with it. And then I think that there's a few things that could be improved, but overall, I think it's a pretty interesting tool that it's going to be a lot of, like really usable for these type of compositions. Now, I was testing these because I saw this pretty cool Premiere Pro pack or toolkit that had a bunch of different like text animations for social media videos. Like, because if you don't want to have just the normal subtitles, you want to stand out a little bit more, then you have to add a little bit more flair to your videos, I guess, right? If you want to be a little bit more, maybe taken more seriously, I guess you could say. But it also depends on the niche or the space that you're in. Some spaces, it doesn't even really matter that much. But using these, or I was thinking of, because I was trying to see, okay, how can I create these pack, but for DaVinci Resolve and do these in a way that is completely and as fast as possible for the user and also user-friendly. And this is good. I tested the MultiText tool first, but then the problem in that case is that it's not good, but if you want to adjust things, because you will have your text here match whatever you're saying, most likely, then you have to go into Fusion, and then you have to go into either the spline tool or the keyframe editor right here. And then you have to find the elements, which are already not in the correct order. And that already sort of leaves the MultiText tool out of the box for these, because it just becomes a little bit more complicated. So then I was thinking, okay, how can I do this? So then I went back to a tool or a bunch of tools that I started developing a few years ago that I never actually ended up releasing because, I don't know, I guess I burned out and then I went into something else, which was the Motioner toolkit, which these are just like beta tests that I was just doing. As you can see, all this stuff right here. And basically, they're just fusion effects on top of things, which then you can add into like text composition that you built or something like that. So I thought, okay, let me just test these text with the effects on them. And now the problem that came with that is that for some reason, the text themselves or the fusion effects affect the rendering a lot. Like really, really a lot. Let me just close the inspector right here. Let me show you the effect. This is just the bare bones of the effect right now because I had modified this. And just a combination of something really like basic. And if I press play, I only have 3 texts stacked together. If you're creating an actor composition, you might even have like 5 or 6 together. If I press play right here, this is already lagging. Now, this is without any cache rendering. Once you cache whatever effects you have, then it works fine, either pretty good. It's a breeze, right? But then you press play without it being cached, it does have a few playback issues. So if you have your video that has like color grade and stuff on and had other animations of like an image that I was testing on, then it becomes a little bit more complicated because it lags a lot more and you have to end up caching. And every time you change something, you have to recache. So then it was sort of that was the roadblock that I was going into in that case, because right now then we have these that it just lags in your playback. But the solution for these in this case is actually just pre-rendering it, or just select these, right click, and then render cache fusion effects. Which if you do that, and then it just gets animated or cached pretty quickly, I would say. But then you can also go up here to playback and then render cache user. Now, the other thing that I was testing was these using the normal text node. Well, while this normal text node is limited for a bunch of things, that you cannot have follower animations, which was one of the animations that I saw on the toolkit that was pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, I can do that with the follower animation. I can implement that as well. But if I press play on these basic text without any caching, it's already working. Now, this animation right here is pretty basic, right? It just says basic title. Now, let's make use of the keyframes, or let's judge the keyframe editor right here. Well, first of all, it looks pretty cool. I think it looks pretty fine. And I think it's great that you're able to just click right here. And then if you have a second monitor, I can just bring this right here to another monitor. Or if you have another monitor, you can bring this all the way over to the other side, or whatever you want it to be, right? Or if you have a projector, project this whole thing on a wall in front of you, or something like that. But yeah, it looks pretty cool. But there are a few things that I think could be better. First of all, we have these big ass space for here. Display parameters. Oh, that was one of the things that I was like thinking, like, how do we just show the ones that have keyframes? This is great if you already have the keyframe set up, but if you don't have keyframes yet, you can display everything and actually add the keyframes from here. In this case, we have these settings, but not the actual keyframes from the rich text right here. But there is a way to do that here as well, I think. Where is that? Let me add a keyframe right here in these. Well, that's another zoom. Maybe this rotation angle. There it goes. We have these. Oh, here is the label for rich text. That looks cool right here as well, because it adds these keyframes right here. And I think it's great that was done that way. Now, this little thing right here, I assumed it was to make these points ease in and out. I think in After Effects, if you have the keyframes here, you can actually press F9 and then, or right click and then ease them in from here. And I thought this little button right here was for that. I click that. And let me just deactivate those. And actually nothing happened. So I wasn't exactly sure what this thing was supposed to do. Now, the cool thing here is that if you can double click right here, not on these main ones, but you can actually double click and actually adjust the position of these right here to modify these. That way you don't have to use the inspector. So if you're working on, right now my screen is set to 150%, so that you can see things more easily on the video. That's why it's so big, and we cannot have this inspector open as well as this vertical view right here. So if I click here, I can just make this a little bit bigger already, and then we can take a look at that. So that's, I think it's great. And I think overall the tool is a lot it has a lot of great features already, and it has a lot of great potential too. But then I think one of the things that they could try to add would be that the function of just right clicking right here and easing in and out right from here, as sort of like when you go right here and right click and you can ease them in from here, similar to that. I think that would be ideal. Okay, now then this thing right here is a little bit hidden. There should be an option to, maybe if you right click here on this label, just right click on that and then open in curves or something like that. That way you just don't have to go in here and then try to find the parameters and then have to find this right here, and then everything is displayed, and then you just have to find what exactly you had changed. So adding that function I think could be great, where you right click that one and it opens only that one directly. And then from here, ideally you won't want to have, maybe there's a way to set up a shortcut for these. But then if you can actually right click here on this point, that would be great as well. because here we have to go from these all the way to this side to add actually the curves. Now the curve itself, I think it works great. It moves really well. It's pretty smooth. So let's do that. Now, similar to Fusion, you can actually add keyframes. I think if you just click right here, and then we can modify that keyframe as well right here. Oops. Let's see how that looks. It was weird. It made a really nice bouncy animation. I don't know. It looks really smooth. Okay, that looks fine. I think that works great. I'm just gonna save that as a preset already. I like that. That's nice. That's nice. But anyways, I think the curve has a little bit of improvement to do. But overall, I think the keyframe editor or the new keyframe editor is great. These little thing right here, they show keyframe tray. I think it's a little bit useless, maybe. Maybe because I just haven't found an exact use case for it yet. If you already have the keyframe editor right here, maybe you don't even need these. Although I remember it used to be that if you this little keyframe sign or icon right here used to show up here, that then you could open these and then move the keyframes from here. So I guess that's why we have these keyframe right here now that we can use to adjust. So I guess that's a use case for this. If you don't want to adjust the curves but just modify the keyframes, I think that, yeah, I think it works. It's good thing. It's a good thing that it's there. And then I think it just makes things a little bit easier too. And then it just activates depending on what you have selected. So that's good, I think. Yeah, there's no complaints about this. Maybe, what if I have multi-selection? Yeah, the multi-selection doesn't work. So it only shows up one thing at a time. Could work great if you want to just make sure to like see how one is related to the other. Maybe a multi-selection way of showing them could work better. But yeah, so those are my sort of critiques or maybe reviews of a few things that I think could work better. Now, yeah, as the performance thing, the fusion effect works great with the cache, but then this text effect just works great already like that without needing to be cached. So that's why I have this weird sort of like question to myself, like, what should I build this with or this toolkit with? I even thought, well, let me just make both methods, right? And maybe I'll do that. I don't know. We'll see. I will first have to experiment a little bit. I already downloaded a bunch of Google fonts that I thought were cool that I'm going to add to it. But yeah, so stay tuned for the update. Maybe I'll do these. I should probably set myself a goal to finish these or put these together by a certain day and then have that completely done by that day. That way I stop getting distracted and just completely, okay, let's just do it, get it done with, and then see how it goes, right? Maybe I'll do that. I also tested the warper tool, create this sort of like interesting transition. It looks all right. It's just a dynamic one right here. And the cool thing here is that if I change these to a different timeline resolution, it actually gets adapted to that one, I think. And this was just the warper with this figure right here. And then mixing a bunch of like the rotation from the transform and the reflection or the mirror from the edges. We can leave the warper for another video. Anyways, what do you think? What have you tried so far? Do you have any thoughts or critiques or maybe reviews that they could use to make things a little bit better for the official release? As we know, this is beta and there's a bunch of things that crash. One thing that I made DaVinci Resolve crash so many times with, for some reason, was that whenever I tried to see, I didn't remember if I was able to actually copy the values from this text plus to another. So if I copy these, then modify these, let's go and make these smaller. I could press Ctrl C and then Alt V on these. I just crashed it. Well, yeah, there we go. That crashed. The way that I made it, I didn't know if that was always happening in the previous version. So I opened DaVinci Resolve 19 and then I tested that, and I was able to just normal copy and paste attributes on normal texts just by pressing Ctrl+C and Alt+V. But then when I went back to DaVinci Resolve 20 and I tried that, it worked again until now that I'm testing it again. But yeah, that's basically the beta and a few experiments that I was doing. Let me know what you think. What have you found out so far? And if you have any ideas for the little animation toolkit that I want to build, let me know that as well, because I want to know what's going to be useful for you so that I can build that, right? That's the main goal, to make things that are useful for you and that save you guys time in the short run and the long run as well, right? Oh, and I didn't tell you, I'm using the Blackmagic app to record these. As you can see right here, I am recording with my phone. I connected these to my computer and then I use the Blackmagic app. And it's working pretty well, I think. So yeah, maybe I'll do another video reviewing these to see how it goes. That's it. Bye.